awareness. But first, we put the spotlight on a group in Oakland celebrating 40 years of service to the community, tackling some very tough problems. We are talking about Asian Community Mental Health Services. It is a well-known group in the East Bay that provides a vast array of services, covering everything from youth to seniors, families of immigrants and refugees, all while tackling a familiar hurdle, the reluctance of those who need assistance to seek that assistance. Now, joining me to talk about how a group taking on such a big job managed its last 40 years is Philip Sun. He is the Executive Director of Asian Community Mental Health Services and Assistant Project Director at Phinith. Thank you both for helping us do this show today. Now, Philip, we've had some other groups that have been celebrating decades of service, and many of them kind of started out as like a small, project with small goals, and then ended up growing. Is that what happened with your group?
Exactly. It was the same thing. In 1974, a group of enthusiastic Asians, cross-disciplined across the different ethnic groups, put together the Articles of Incorporation for ACMHB. It's the board. We are now known as ACMHS. And as a result of that, there were 6 people who started it at the very beginning. Now we're about 100 people. And we speak in a vicinity of 14 different dialects and Asian languages.
And now you're celebrating 40 years. What do you plan to do in terms of looking ahead? Stay pretty much the same or change?
I think change is inevitable. Change is the constant. And I think what we're doing is we're having a celebration which talks about the past, celebrates the founders, and also looks toward the future with neurophysiology. What's happening when we're actually conducting what we do? Is the Asian brain itself different than other brains? Is it cultural? Is it what made us who we are today? How does its blend in the Bay Area really change who we've been? How do you separate out the 3 generations of people who've come? The immigrants, the ones caught in between, and the new kids who may or may not even speak the dialects that their grandparents speak. This all causes stress, this causes behavioral problems, and this is what we're all about.
Well, Phinith, you can probably address some of this. We're talking about generations. We're talking about older generations. We're talking about young people. One thing that may be a common denominator that I've always heard is sort of a reluctance, maybe a stigma for one generation and maybe a reluctance to trust the system for the young people. Do you find that to be the case?
It is the case. There is a lot of stigma with regards to seeking mental health services for our API community. There is a fear of shame for themselves and for their families, and there's also there's fear of showing up and being out there and saying that, oh, I need help. And that's very hard. And a lot of it also stemmed from the model minority myth. The model minority myth is that we're all healthy and wealthy. Asian American all healthy and wealthy. But the reality is when you break it down, we are struggling. Many of our Asian communities are struggling with depression, or Asian communities struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder, especially immigrants and refugees struggling with that. But the challenging part is accessing those services.
How do you get them to get past that then?
A lot of the services at ACMHS is we actually go into the community. We connect with community leaders, we can engage with faith leaders, and we provide mental health education and awareness. And just being there with the community. And that's where our culturally responsive services are. That's very unique with the API community, is providing that kind of mental health services and being in the groundwork, being in the grassroots, engaging them where they're at, instead of waiting for the symptom to get so bad that they're being hospitalized.
And I noticed, I was watching some of the programs that were going on, especially with the young people, and that distrust of the system, and you really have to kind of measure your progress in very kind of small increments, don't you?
We do. A lot of progress that we can see is instead when they're isolated, we provide support groups or social engagement group, and that's a huge success to even come out and to share and to connect with other API youth, API community. That's a big leap. That's saying that, I have needs, and I know I'm seeing that you have needs too, and let's come together, let's share, and that takes a lot of courage and strength for our community to do that.
Phil, maybe the history of your group and being there so long really starts to work for you in that case, right? I mean, people start to trust you if you're around long enough, right?
Exactly, and there is a factor around behavioral health which may not be understood. If you're in physical health, going to see your doctor, you may go to see them once a year, and at the most 4 times a year, and that's considered a lot. With our clients, many of them come every week, and because we have a caring situation where we're bringing people back into the community, making them productive again, and helping them survive. And it's a very traumatic situation coming to a new country, not having language skills, not understanding the culture, not knowing who Leave It to Beaver is, not knowing why Jack was in a box and who was Jack anyhow. So these are all different. So we care for these people, and we care for the individuals. Unfortunately, there are many more than we understand that there are, because it's not directly associated just with poverty. It's a condition which affects all Americans. And 38% of all Americans, only less than 38%, get any care at all. So you take the Asian population that has this problem of addressing it, and in many cases, there's no word for behavioral health in these languages.
What about in terms of follow-up, and how do you get a lot of people who start in the program and then sort of disappear, or how do you kind of stay on top of that?
We have different staff who does different roles. Some are clinicians, which are counselors. Others are case managers who can provide other basic services that can help follow up and support them through different kind of services, including helping them apply for assistance, cash assistance or government assistance, or even helping them to make doctor's appointments and supporting them with that. And when they are not available, we actually would call them, or we would go to the community. And sometimes we are in the community, and that's how we're able to continue to engage them, to continue to support them.
One of our heroes is John Howe. He joined the agency January 29, 1975, a few months after it started. He's still there. He wants the hardest cases. He goes out, knocks on doors, makes sure that the clients come in, finds out what the problems are. He takes care of them. This is what we're about. He's one of our heroes.
How do you measure, like, success? What's a successful person who's gone from one end to the other?
Somebody who graduates. The term is graduate.
Graduates,
and
yes.
we bring them through this process back into community and to a viable life situation where they transition into normalcy. That's success.
Well, that's very good. Well, again, it's pretty remarkable that a program that sometimes has to measure progress in such small increments has managed to make such big strides in the community. Certainly something to celebrate. And